And like I said, Pelosi's dad talked about how we should... You have to read his statement, but it was kind of like along the lines of like we should look up to like that. We should look up to Stonewall Jackson, Robert Lee for some of the things that they did. I'm not saying that we should, but Pelosi, your dad thought one way, and you're literally spinning a completely different way. And I think she's only spinning that way so she can try to stay in office. I think she's pandering. And I think a lot of that comes to pandering. I'm not saying that there aren't people that legitimately have a grievance out there with said person on statute. I'm not saying they don't. I will refer to Columbus. A lot of the shit he did was heinous. So yes, I understand. Fuck him. Tear it down. I understand that shit. Let him take it down. Put that shit in a museum. Because then you ain't never got to go look at that shit. Ever. That's just, you just do. We can't erase history just to rewrite it how we like it. I don't think it works that way, and I don't think it should work that way. And I'll move on now, because we'll move on to the defunding. I'm going to call it the defundment is what I'm going to call it. When I did my original podcast on the Minneapolis Police City Council to disband the Minneapolis Police Department, it was exactly what they meant. You can check out the city page's Hannah Jones article. It's very clear. They wanted to disband and dismantle the department. It was not defund. Yes, now they've walked the statement back 100 times because nobody was jumping on board with disbanding the police outright, because then you would have anarchy. Now, I'm not talking about defunding. I'm talking about if you closed up shop for all the police departments in Minneapolis or wherever else across the world, you are going to have anarchy. No laws, or no one to implement said laws is going to have anarchy. That's what it is. I'm sorry. Like, now you want to start defunding and shit, that's different. But disbanding is getting rid of the police altogether. But it went from disbanding to dismantle, etc. Now it's defund. Trump had made it clear that the defunding isn't going to happen. Now, how would the Fed actually enforce that? I'm not exactly sure. But I mean, I have my own examples of things. Like I think two things, and the first is this: I think the old heads, the Democrats, conservatives, the ones pandering, the ones that are all for defunding in Congress or in Senate, most of them have been in office for my lifetime, and then some. Biden started in 1975, and we expect reform from him. He had decades to do anything in reform that was reform worthy, and he didn't. But he also came up with the '94 crime bill and authored that shit. Pelosi signed the '94 crime bill with a bunch of other now congresspeople. But Pelosi's been in office since '81. Schumer's been in office since the '80s too. But one of my points is, again, most of these people have been in office for a significant part of people's lifetimes. And what have they done? But they're going to be the first ones to talk about reform. But you haven't done anything. You've been in office for 40 years, 20 years, 30 years, 15 years, and you've yet to actually do anything reform-worthy that the city, that the people have noticed, embraced, and liked. You've done nothing. You've hurt the communities time and time and time and time and time again. And this is on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats. Firing shots at both sides. Because that's true. How long have you guys been in office? And you're talking about reform now. What about reform 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? When most of you motherfuckers got into office. Did you actually do what you said you were going to do? Or no? Now, see, I got a little bit, I'm going here. I believe there needs to be term limits. And that's on both sides. Because if you're really not striving to do the best for your state, your district, whatever, and you're not implementing laws that legitimately help the people in your state, your city, whatever, then you should not be in office. The taxpayers should not be giving you fucking money to play grab ass, or let's sit and talk about football or whatever the fuck is going on that you like. You need, in my eyes, Congress, Senate, y'all need to be talking about what helps the American people. That's it. And the fact you guys are talking about reform and you ain't reformed shit since you've been in office, I have a high fucking doubt that any reform you come up with is actually going to work. Is it going to be a spin of another thing or another thing? Like the war on drugs, the 94 crime bill. You set people up to fail all over, and it impacted the black community heavily. You didn't help for the crack epidemic. You didn't help for the heroin epidemic. You didn't help for the meth epidemic. But now in 2020, you want to offer free injection sites because you let the drugs run fucking rampant. Mainly because you locked people up for nonsensical fucking crimes. Locking people up for weed until up into the 2000s, that's nonsense. That's fucking nonsense. I'm not even for complete legalization because I don't want it to affect the youth. But that's fucking insane that we're going to expect reform from the same people that have been preaching the same shit since they got into office 20 years ago. And then when we see only Democratic strongholds being the cities that are being rioted and looted amongst the protests. And now I'm not saying that there wasn't other people that came in from other cities to help protest and ruin shit and riot and burn shit down. I'm sure there was. I'm sure for 100% sure there was. Because I think a lot of people go into shit for themselves and just to see what they can ruin and destroy. Because again, I don't believe all people believe we're all together in this. I believe that's just a statement for everyone to cower behind. But we've seen these cities get progressively worse over the time the Democrats have had it. Whether it was by law, taxation, whatever you want to say. It's gradually got worse. And I don't foresee it getting better if it's going to continually be under Democratic control. Now, a good example is Minnesota. Minnesota, the metro area, that'd be St. Paul, Minneapolis, Blaine, Coon Rapids, the surrounding areas of Minneapolis, not the rural areas, and not, most of the rural areas are Republican, or conservative at least. Not that there's not some that are Democrat here and there, but it's not an entire blue state. And that's what like Amy Klobuchar and them would lead you to believe that's not. They would lead you to believe that it's all Democratic. It's not. And Amy Klobuchar, she has her own fucking demons. She let Derek Chauvin stay on the force. You can look that shit up. I've done a little bit of research on it. I got to do more, but she's done some fucked up. She did some fucked up shit, letting some brutal cops stay on the force that she shouldn't have, and she's a fucking Democrat. The cities have had issues and issues and issues and issues for so fucking long. It's insane. It's it's the schools. They get less and less money seemingly every year. The property tax shit continually goes up. Taxes go up. The cost of living goes up. If you wanted to do anything in your house or you wanted to fix your house, permits change every fucking year. Restrictions and all that shit changes every year. Especially in the city. I mean, to try to put a fence up where I live, they got to go through like 10 things to just put a fucking fence up. It's insane. But they've literally gotten worse under progressive and democratic leaders. And the second thing is defunding the police. I'm fine with relieving the police of certain jobs, such as social justice visits, unless an arrest is needed, for social service visits, unless an arrest is needed. For overdose calls, mental health issues, you can take that defunded money and literally put that towards the people that would help with that. You can call them specialized units, whatever you want. But, when an ambulance is called, a cop shows up. Why the fuck that cop got to show up? If I'm calling because Joe Schmo had a heart attack, why the fuck does a cop need to show up? You can train an EMT or someone else to decide if this is a crime scene. Isn't that hard. You can train them so the police don't have to go to that call. So, and the good examples for mental health issues. You want to hire a therapist? You can, maybe not therapist, but maybe you, again, EMTs, something like that. Social workers. Social workers are highly overworked, so I don't know how that's going to work because they got to be used in two of these. They got to be used for social calls, so that would be for like CPS, adult protection services, those things, social, like that. The stuff they're already involved in that they're overworked in with caseloads. So, but you want to talk about specialized units, specialized things like that. Okay, I'm good with that because then you're going to take some of that off the police. So then the police, I guess, aren't overworked or overstressed or the other thing. Because police aren't doctors. So when they show up because you're having a fucking manic breakdown or you're 10 days in on a fucking meth binge and now you're having a fucking psychotic break, I don't necessarily believe the police are the best people to come get you. I just don't. Because most police aren't even necessarily even trained to deal with people like that. But you could definitely get someone that is like an EMT or a nurse or something that you could train someone to be able to help de-escalate that situation down. Now, you might have to call the police in, but that would be if it starts to escalate past the part where you can't handle it. But then again, like I said, you're going to have specialized units. And this is all in my opinion. But I know cops they always claim they're overworked, they're stretched out. Some really end up at pointless fucking calls. But then again, social workers, same thing. They're fucking overworked. They're stretched out. They got cases on cases on cases. So, do we hire more people and train them? What do we do? That's where I think, where does the defunding go? That's my biggest question. Where does it go? Do we give to specialized units? What do we do? And then I also believe this. The police need to have way better training. And I'm not talking what they have now where you can have a diploma, you go through like 21 weeks and you're done. I'm talking about what you need to, what should happen is, if, this is what I'm saying, if there's got to be a grandfather law. So if you've been in, let's say you've been in the police for 3 years. I think I used 3 years when I was talking to a couple people about an example, 3 years. Because I think by 3 years you'd have enough training under your belt. You'd be through your rookie year, all that shit. You'd have enough under your belt that I would believe you wouldn't make the wrong call as if you were only your fourth shift in, like one of the cops that was on George. Lane, he was only on his fourth shift. Fucking idiot. I also believe that they should have a criminal justice degree, because I believe that would give them some type of idea on how to de-escalate a situation on a verbal level versus having to reach for anything. Now, I'm not saying you're just not going to have to tase someone or shoot somebody. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is it'll help, because it'll teach you something that a diploma and 21 weeks of just training didn't teach you shit, in comparison to if you had a criminal justice degree. And then on top of that, you'd still have to go through all the training that I'm going to get into. You'd still have to go through, I would like at least a 1 year training base. Where after that, you have to monthly evaluations. You'd have to go through a physical evaluation and a mental evaluation to make sure you're still fit to handle it on both levels. And not only that, then you're still going to have to go to the shooting range. And what I would like is I'd like to see more shots, not to kill. Shoot to harm, not to kill. Like knee shots, shoulder shots. Shit that's going to put down somebody but not kill them. We got to have less trigger-happy police, because there's no sense in emptying a clip into anybody, especially if they're on the ground. I don't give a fuck. I will never understand that at all. Scared or not, shook, no, fuck that. You're supposed to be trained to not do that. So you're going to, in fact, you were under-trained in my eyes if that's what you're going to do.